I've deposited my paycheck. The way that looks here is the date I deposited my paycheck, how much it was, and again I put it into my car column, increasing the total amount that I might have for a car, or to later I'll use this to spread into the other columns. I'm at the bottom of the page, so now I have to make the next page. I'll put all these columns in onto a fresh page, and then I'll put the balances. So these balances, these last numbers in each column, as my starting point on the next page. Alright, so this is how it looks. I've got my date and I've got my balances all set up. And so I'll continue adding and subtracting from each column. Also a reminder that my budget is equal to my checking accounts plus my cash minus my credit cards. That's how much is available in my master budget here. Alright, I've added these last few things here. I've got a page sending my portion of the rent and my portion of the rent for next go round. I paid CenterPoint Energy and my life insurance for the year. So here's the rent. So this is the date that I paid her, how I paid her that check number, this $700. It comes out of the rent column. Rent column is reduced to 0. This energy bill is a utility, so that reduces my utility. And then I consider paying life insurance a utility, like a recurring bill, so I put it under utilities. And I paid annually, and that gives me a negative amount. I use these brackets to show that there's a negative amount there. Alright, so this part's done. Anything that I've spent money for in my checking account or added money into my checking account has been reflected in my master budget, and the appropriate column has been affected. So these two are in balance. Right, so I went online and found my Discover Card purchases that I hadn't written into my big budget, and I wrote them in. They have to be subtracted from each individual account, and then they have to be added to the total amount of the credit cards that I owe. So two entries, one that I have to subtract from the amount that I have available, and one that I have to add to the amount that I owe. Okay, for instance, I've got this Pizza Luce entry. I consider that more fun than food, so that comes out of the fun column. And my last entry, I have a negative balance in there, which means I have spent too much money in this column, so I have a negative balance, so that's what the brackets are for. And I'm going to add this $15 to it, so it's going to come out to about $132.35. Then I have to add the amount that I owe my credit cards, $15. So I'm going to add those amounts. And there are the amounts. Alright, I'm pretty sure I have everything written in here that needs to be written in here. I have all of my credit cards and all of my deposits. Now I'm going to go and take my bills that I've got from my credit card, and I'm going to check each one of these and cross them off. Every time I find one in my budget, I'll put a little dot next to it here and circle the amount over here. So I've done all these. These have been checked. And what that's going to do is I'm going to find out what this amount really is. I might have made some errors, and I'm going to have everything taken off that I have accounted for, and then I'll have these other ones that I haven't accounted for, and I'll just add those up, and I'll have a valid amount for how much I actually owe my credit cards. Alright, and the way I start that process is I just go back until I start seeing all of these are circled, and that's where I begin the process. So these are all circled here, and here are some that are not, so I'll start here on this page. I'm going to try to find this amount on my Discover bill. So it says $16.56. The $16.56 is my two Netflix accounts. So that's these two. So I found them. I put a little dot next to them like that, and I circle the amount in my big budget, how much I owe my credit card. There, that's accounted for. I'm going to do the same thing for the $63.30. I'm going to find it on here. There's the $63.30 accounted for. I go all the way through and do all of these on this list. And then I'll do it for this other credit card that I use. I use this other credit card, and I'll do it for these amounts. And once I've finished with that, then I'll have some that I have not circled, and I'll just add those up. I don't count the payments. I don't do anything with the payments. I neither add them or subtract them, because those are coming out. I'm accounting for them now with these circles. So I'm just going to add up the ones that I still owe. The ones that I still owe are going to be the final amount that I still owe at the end, and I'll adjust that. So for now, I'm going to go through and check each one of these and put a dot next to them and circle them in my budget. Alright, so I'm done with this part. I've checked every one of these. Now I'm going to add up the ones that don't have circles to get a final tally, and I'm going to use an adding machine for that. Alright, so that's how much I owe, so I'm going to just change that amount. Okay, and the last step is to compare how much I actually have with how much I think I have. So in my checking accounts and cash, that's how much I actually have. And these columns are how much I think I have. So I'm going to add these up and adjust these amounts so that they equal how much I actually have in my checking accounts and my cash. The step for that is I'm just going to add each of these and get a number, and then compare it to the number that I have by adding these amounts here. I'll adjust these numbers to match the real numbers here. So the step for this is I add these numbers up, and I compare it to the amount that I actually have minus how much I owe my credit card, and I'll adjust my budget to match reality. This is reality. I really have this much money, and I really owe this much money, and then I'm going to adjust these amounts to match that. So I've added these up, and they're slightly wrong. I've added them up to this amount, and this is how much I actually have. So I get to add some money to these accounts. I'm going to add that balance. I'm going to take some of this money from my account, and I'm going to add it across here, so I have enough money for the next month. Alright, the difference between what I actually have and what I thought I have is $295, and I'm just adjusting one of the columns. So these amounts we add up to what I actually have minus what I owe my credit cards. These amounts are true. So now I'm going to take some of this amount and spread it across here, so I have enough money for my budget for the whole month. And I'll indicate that by writing transfers in here and spreading it across. I'm going to create a positive balance for how much money I'll have to spend in fun. I will have enough money to pay my rent in that column, and enough money to eat for a month, plus hopefully have a little extra. Enough to pay my bills, enough to buy things for the house, and this column will be adjusted up and down, and likewise for all of them. Okay, so I've determined some amounts. I need $700 for my rent, and I've added some amounts to each of these columns. I'm going to add them in. Except for this column, this is where the money is coming from. I'm taking all this money out and spreading it across these other columns. So this one here is a negative amount, and that's going to reduce this. Alright, so now my new balances are the numbers that I've added in. And if you add all of these numbers up here, you get the number that I added before. That was this amount, equal to how much I really have in my checking accounts and cash, minus how much I owe my credit card. This is my new budget. And if you stay on top of this, it's not so much work.